I had expected the house to be quiet when I walked in. 2 days early wasn't much, just a slight shift in my plans, but it was enough to catch them unprepared. The air smelled of sawdust and wet cement, a faint chemical tang from paint. My toilet, the bathroom, the kitchen all dismantled, stripped to raw frames. There was a rhythm to the chaos, a precision in the disorder. My sister stood by the doorway, her husband behind her, and her in-laws leaned lazily against the walls, smirking. "We're renovating before moving in," she said, her tone light, almost rehearsed. They laughed. "Not at a joke. At me." I said, "Okay." The words left my mouth before I could reconsider. They had the weight of an acknowledgement, the weight of passive observation. And then I walked past them, surveying the wreckage that had been my home. I moved through rooms cautiously. Tools were scattered. A drill lay on the counter, a bucket of plaster tipped in the corner. Nothing was broken in a permanent way, but every surface carried the message control had shifted. My space was no longer mine. Their amusement filled the air like smoke. I could almost choke on it if I let myself. I didn't respond to the laughter. I didn't ask why. Silence became my instrument. Each step across the splintered floorboards was deliberate. Each glance at the dust-covered countertop was measured. I reminded myself that haste or anger would only reinforce the impression they had of me as malleable. By evening, the chaos had not abated, and neither had the undercurrent of mockery. I sat in what was left of the living room, thinking of the simplest ways to regain control. The family had assumed that my early return meant I was powerless, and for a moment, the thought stung. But I knew that patience was more potent than confrontation. The next morning, my phone rang. Her name flashed across the screen. I hesitated before answering. "There are 5 police cars in front of the house," she said, her voice pitched with a mixture of panic and disbelief. I paused. 5? Yes. They're asking questions about the renovations, about permits, about everything. The weight of the words hit me gradually. They had overlooked one small, a critical detail. The renovations were being done without permits, inspections, or approvals. What had seemed like a minor overreach now teetered into illegality. Authority had arrived, tangible and unmistakable, in the form of uniformed officers and flashing lights. I didn't rush to the door. I didn't raise my voice. I let the moment exist fully. From the street below, I could imagine the panic settling like dust on the furniture they had just rearranged, like a mirror reflecting their own entitlement back at them. Later, I walked through the rooms again. The sawdust remained, the chaos intact, but now there was a quiet accountability in the air. The laughter was gone, replaced with a hum of subdued movement. My sister avoided eye contact. Her husband spoke sparingly. Authority had made the rules clear without my intervention. I didn't gloat. I didn't punish. I simply reclaimed my space with presence rather than action. Each room was slowly mine again, not because I had forced it, but because consequence had arrived quietly, rigorously, and visibly. Sitting in the half-finished kitchen, I realized the shift had been both subtle and complete. I hadn't needed to confront them, the world had done it for me. And yet, even in that quiet victory, a residue remained: the tension, the psychological strain of entitlement met with authority. There was no cheer, no finality, only the knowledge that patience, observation, and restraint had preserved my dignity. In the end, I learned something about boundaries and leverage. Power isn't always a matter of force. Sometimes, it's the calm awareness that lets others stumble into their own limits. And sometimes, the simplest, "okay," carries more weight than a shouted confrontation. I left the house that evening, stepping carefully over planks and buckets, thinking not of revenge, but of quiet endurance. The family would remember the day the law arrived in front of their own ambitions. I would remember the day I didn't need to intervene to reclaim control. The house remained under construction, but in its half-finished corridors, I walked with a certainty that hadn't been there 2 days before.